Hi, can you hear me? Can't hear you.
There we go.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Eric?
Good.
That's good.
Um, I have your book.
Hey.
I've had it for a while now. Yeah, it says it was printed on
And
Halloween in 2019.
yep,
So,
that you've had it for over a year then.
yep.
So
I didn't have the podcast back then, or we would have been talking way before that. But yeah, I tend to go follow the hashtag writing community and somehow find people and buy their books haphazardly without really thinking much about it. And you happen to have fallen into that. So,
that's actually awesome. I just started recently doing that where I like find other writers and I've been wish listing all of their books on Amazon because starting next month I'm allowing myself a book allowance to spend on
nice.
other people's books.
Yeah, you know, I didn't read much when I was younger. And then as an adult, my sister, I was with my sister when her kids were much younger than they are now. And they were out and about and they just were grabbing books and buying them. I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, one of the rules I have is when we're out and about, if they want a book, they get a book, as long as there are words in it. And I'm like, that's wonderful. And so ever since then, I've sort of fallen into that for myself. And if I want a book, I get a book no matter what. Um,
I
and
like that.
yeah, I, it's better than I think paying for streaming subscription services. I'm moving that money to something a lot more important. Um, and that was years ago. And as a result, since then, I've not only read more books than I ever thought I'd read. I've written more. I ended up pursuing an MFA in writing, which
That's
wasn't my
awesome.
thing. My thing has been mainly film and video. And so it's interesting how a little rule like that my sister came up with just snowballed into this. But yeah, and I found you on Instagram. Your book is authored by Anne. On Instagram, you're
Yeah.
Anastasia Childers. That's your real
Yes.
name?
Yes. Anne is actually my maiden name's initials.
Okay.
It was Anastasia Noel Eddy. And my dad always told me that if I publish a book, that I should like be able to like be findable on social medias. But if anyone had like for whatever reason wanted to try and find me, it'd be a lot harder to find me by my pen name. So you can still find me by Anne on Instagram because I changed my handle to like Anne Poetry. And even with my on my public Facebook, it's also Anne, and then on my TikTok, it's also Anne Poetry. But I have like my legal name there too, just so people have something to refer me to. I guess
Right.
refer to me as. Um, that was a recent change I had made was put my legal name on there as well.
Okay. I was just curious. Um, how'd you get started?
So that is actually a little bit of a story.
That's what we want.
Back in 2017, I had left an abusive relationship that I had been in for 2.5 years, which was really hard for me to do. I'm an empath, and so I have this thing where most of the people I end up like befriending or dating were narcissists at the time. Like I had a hard time differentiating them from real people. Like, well, I'm not real, you know what I mean? Like from other people, from healthy relationships, I couldn't understand the difference. And so when that had happened, at the same time, I had lost my best friend as well because her and I got into an argument over actually relationships. And it just ended up being an argument. So I had left my relationship, and then like 2 days later, I had lost my best friend. She had decided that we couldn't be friends anymore, and I had been friends with her my entire childhood up until that point in 2017. Which in 2017 I was 20. What year is it?
2021.
Okay, yeah. So in 2017 I was 21. So yeah, and it was so I had been friends with her for her entire life, and then she's a couple years younger than me, and then like most of my life. So that was harder for me than the um, relationship. But what happened because of that was this girl I had worked with. Her name was Molly. She called into work and she drove an hour to my house, and she had a bunch of movies, and then she had a stack of poetry books by R.H. Sin, and she actually had bought me a book as well. So she bought me my first poetry book, and she had also brought a stack. She's like, "These are mine. I want them back. This one's yours." And I actually still have that book. It's not with me right now because my sister-in-law has it, but it was the compilation of the Broken. And we watched movies and read poetry, and she gave me a notebook, and that was she told me that what helped her through her first breakup was writing her feelings as she saw them, not trying to explain them to other people, but writing them as she saw them in a notebook. And she said that that's how poetry is writing things as you see them, like as they are in your head. And to other people, they seem poetic because you're not trying to break it down or make it logical for someone else.
Yeah,
So that's kind of how it started.
it's interesting that you describe yourself as an empath because that was the impression I initially got when I found your Instagram. Because you, some of the stuff you were posting, which then also translates to the content of the book.
Yeah.
Did you you do the artwork?
Yes, I drew it all
Oh,
myself.
you're talented. Um,
Thank you.
so, how did you get from getting your first poetry book though to actually sitting down and writing your own verse?
So when so it actually kind of all like landslid from there.
Yeah.
Um so it's funny that I ended up being a writer because I've been writing since I was in 8th grade. And I was always told I would never be a writer because I'm dyslexic. And I am very dyslexic. I have to put a lot of my writing in like a translate app just to make sure it sounds good, like it still flows even as like spoken word, because I can't, sometimes I put the wrong words in. And so I wrote a lot of my emotions and stuff in a notebook. Actually, let me grab it real quick.
Sure.
This was my first book that I wrote everything in, and I wrote my emotions as I saw them. And I had like all of these like different like verses I had written down. And the more I wrote them, the more I started understanding my feelings. And so the more I wrote, the more I wanted to write. And that kind of like landslid into, I showed them to Molly because she was the only one who knew I had that book. And she was like, wow, these are really good. You should publish them. She kind of said it as a joke, but I was like, I'm down. I want to do this because like no one's ever said my good writing is good enough to publish. And I started working on art, which is also kind of funny because I've never been a good artist. I worked on art, and I just took everything that I filled in this notebook. Like I filled this notebook within a month, and I decided to draw all the artwork, which took like 2 3 months, and then I put it all together and had it formatted because I didn't know how to do that. My mom did, so she formatted the book, and then we just published it on Amazon on a whim.
Nice. Yeah. I think, I mean, I don't know what the ratio is, but it seems like a huge amount of people who have been successful in the arts were told that they can't do it because of some hindrance. Uh, and dyslexia comes up a lot in a lot of these stories.
Hmm.
Um, so I think there was just something about, I don't know if it's the education system, the cookie cutter education system or what,
Yeah.
but um, yeah, I mean, I've been told that for a variety of reasons that, oh, well, don't you have a union that, your father can get you into? And I'm like, yeah, but that's not what I want to do.
That's not what I want to do. Um, Actually, I had to like growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was that transitioning period for the education system. And so they still didn't have room for people with disabilities. Um, and so when we found out I was dyslexic at like 5 or 6 years old, about the time I was doing kindergarten. And so I did kindergarten, and they were like, oh, she's dyslexic. We can't take her. Like the public school system said that they said that they could take me, but they could not accommodate me. And my mom was like, that's not worth it. And she's not the world's greatest mom, but like there were a few things that she did that like I was happy about. I ended up being homeschooled my entire life because of that, which ended up being good for a variety of reasons. I had more time to pursue creative outlets that I enjoyed. I could set my own routine. I recently found out I'm autistic, and so I need routine. And having been in like just working full time, having to be at a work environment for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week is exhausting. And I miss the days where I could be home, and I'd like to eventually pursue writing from home. So I'm trying to do that on top of working. And so it's kind of a back and forth, but
Yeah. I see on Instagram you're a barista. So you
yes.
have the second most important job in the world next to being an artist.
I do.
Um, I just want to point out this I can't adult today sign behind you.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. My brother got that for me. He got me an I Can Adult Today one, and then I have one for puppies, and then I had one that is at my bedroom at my parents' house, and I wanted to take it with me, but I didn't. I like forgot to grab it, but it was on the wall, and it was a metal one that says that it was like the United Sarcasm Society. Your opinions don't matter, and then it just says from the Union of the Smartiest Pantiest. And I was like, it was just like a really funny sign, and I had it up in my room, and then I had like a bunch of like sassy remarks all over my wall, and this is my office now, so I'm like trying to like slowly morph it into that.
yeah, I love that term adulting because it's my number one excuse for not doing my taxes. I can't adult today, so immediately my eyes went to it. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, well,
um,
that's exactly how it is.
are you developing your second book?
Yeah. Actually, I have just recently picked out the title for it. It's going to be titled Glass Roses. Um, it was valid enough reason to get a glass rose on Amazon. So let me pop this up and so you can actually see it. Yeah, so I got a crystal rose on Amazon just because I obviously needed it for writing inspiration. And I'm actually writing out my final draft before I send it to beta readers.
What's beta readers?
Beta readers are people who read your content, like who specifically like that genre. That was
Right.
something I failed to do the first time, was make sure they actually like the genre before I send them the book. So there are people who like that genre who basically read through it and just find different like formatting errors, or like, hey, I don't think this flowed right, or hey, it was actually hard to read because of insert error here, before you
Okay.
send it off to like Amazon self-publishing.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think I do that too. I just don't call it that. Interesting term though. Um, Beta readers.
I mean, I'm not even sure that's the real like term. I have well, because like it's commonly known that people beta test games,
Yeah.
and so I like in my brain like I don't even know if I've ever heard it like referred to as beta readers, but like I've just like the term beta test used in
Yeah.
video games, I've just kind of morphed it over to writing. I'm like, ah, yes, they're beta reading this.
I like it though. I just like reach out to like people. I'm like, hey, can you just do a quick grammatical edit? Don't tell me to rearrange anything. And,
Right.
they just do it. But I prefer the term beta reader. I think I'm going to start using that.
Yeah,
Um,
that's just something I've always like been like, hey, like, can you just beta read this? And people are like, what? And I'm like, can you just read my work and tell me if there's any problems? And she's like, oh yeah, sure. And so,
it's interesting too. Like you you described them as people who are specifically interested in the genre, and you had said that you didn't do that initially.
mhm.
Um, I find that that's really common with uh, people in their first books, where like especially with family, the feedback isn't as useful as it could be if it was from somebody who has experience with that genre.
Exactly. I think so. My one of my closest friends, I love her to pieces. She does not like poetry at all. Just does not. And so she was one of the people I had sent my book to the first time, and it is honestly the most discouraging thing when people who like when you get feedback from people and they're like, "Well, it wasn't really good." I mean, it was all right, but then like if you then I started getting like actual feedback after I published my book. Like I don't know if you've seen the reviews I have on Amazon, but I have 9 5-star reviews. There's not very many, but there are 9 positive reviews, and that's what I'm excited about. And it's all
Yeah,
from people who actually like poetry. Like, oh hey, I stumbled across your book. I really like poetry, and so I like your book because I like this genre. And then it like occurred to me that I'm like, I should send it to people who already read poetry to
yeah,
see if it's good instead of people who don't.
yeah. I learned that lesson when I got into making art house films. I
Yeah.
um, I produced this 1 hour movie, which is really hard for people to get through if they're not used to watching art house cinema. And it just didn't do well. It even got kicked off the Amazon platform because people they wouldn't go past 3 minutes, the first 3 minutes, and that was one of the things that red flagged my movie. And eventually, when I finally negotiated it back on there, and I
Right.
only sent it to people who are used to that genre, and it's been doing much better. Like, and I never targeted the, I guess that's why you need to target your audience, because
Right.
people aren't necessarily going to be your audience.
No, and that's actually been the hardest part. My friend and I right now actually are doing a competition to grow our social media accounts. We've each picked 3 accounts, and she does art. Much like I don't know if you've ever seen like Where's My Bubble or like other artists like that who do like comic strip books and
Mm,
like modern like adulting, and so like a lot of people follow them on like Instagram and stuff for their stuff, and she does stuff like that, and her art is super good, but she's like, I don't think I could do anything with it. And so we have a competition going, and we are having to learn that when you find your art audience, you can actually grow a little bit, like instead of trying to like recruit your friends because they're not always your audience.
yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, the people I grew up with and the people I'm related to, they really only care about the stuff that concerns what they know. So if I
Yeah.
make a film in my hometown, or if I write a poem about growing up there, um, they'll be interested in that. But they don't give a shit what I'm doing in New York City.
Oh, exactly. No, they're not interested in that at all. Um, yeah, I've learned specifically like that never to let my parents read my writing because my mom, I like I said, she's amazing. She's not the world's greatest mom. She does have narcissistic personality disorder. She's awesome most of the time, but like sometimes like it just kind of like it's almost like a flip of a switch. And so I don't let her read my reading because she looks at it and only worries about how it affects her. And she's like, "What are people going to think about me? Like you write about all this heartbreak." And she's like, "Are people going to think I'm a horrible mom?" And I'm like, "You didn't cause my heartbreak though. Like you're not like the main." She's like, "I know, but people are gonna think I'm a horrible person." I'm like, "I don't think people are gonna think that. I think they're gonna be like, hey, someone relates to me."
I think she might have followed me on Instagram at one point. Was she on Instagram?
Probably.
Because she was
Her name
a
is
graphic designer.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
she's a web designer. Yeah.
and I think she found me because I was responding to your stuff, but then I like switched my account over and then switched back, and I lost all my followers. But
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. She always struck me as fairly supportive.
Oh yeah, no, she is. Like as long as I do not let her read any of my stuff, she's fine.
Yeah.
Like she is supportive of me until she starts worrying about what people think of her. And I've noticed that I have to find that balance where I'm like, so I don't let my parents read it, and then I typically don't sit like if my siblings are like strike up an interest in it and they're like, hey, I want to read your stuff, and I'm like, oh okay, I'm not gonna like offer it up though.
Yeah. Same. And I think that's the healthiest way to do it. I think most parents too, at least in my discussions here, um, they want to know that you're on your way to being financially successful from it. Otherwise, they don't want to hear about it.
Right. That is so true. That's exactly what my dad is doing. He wants to know I'm safe and financially successful. That's why he has me published under a pen name. Even though now that I'm like switching over to my legal name, I am still gonna publish under the pen name just because that's something he picked and I like it. Um, but it's gonna be like connected to my legal name still, and I'm still trying to find that balance too because I'm not as I live in the city now rather than in the middle of nowhere, so it would be a lot harder to find me if they were just like, "Oh, she lives in North Carolina.
Right.
Cool. Pick one of the big cities and start looking." Like there are like 10,000 people per big city. Like good luck.
Yeah. Do you have a main website yet?
I don't actually. I was thinking about doing that if this next book goes well. I wanted to work like hire someone to help me set one up. But I wanted to wait to see how this works and to see if I can properly like grow and promote myself on the existing social medias I have, then I'm gonna try like having a website and having my books on there as well. But I wanted to kind of like test the waters first.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I feel like you're you've done fairly well just using social media.
Yeah,
Um,
and not even like so I haven't really even promoted myself until this like so January 21st was when I actually started really going. I'm gonna start doing this, and that's when my competition with my friend Brenda started. But before that, like I didn't really do much. I just kind of let my social media sit there, and then I occasionally posted, but I didn't really have any plans or anything like that. And I grew a lot through that, like since my book has been published. And so I think actually focusing on it, I might grow a lot more. So we'll see.
so you said you had 9 reviews on Amazon, and you're trying to get to 15. I saw
Yeah.
that video on Instagram. Um, I don't know if I posted a review because I don't really post reviews, and if I do, they're not even under my
Well,
name.
you should go back and post one.
Yeah, I'll go look and make sure. I don't know if I was one of the 9 or if I just didn't do it. I
I'll think of
mostly review on Goodreads. Is your book on Goodreads?
I didn't put it on Goodreads yet. That is something I have been told is a good thing to do, and I should.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. And then they'll give you an author page as long as you can verify that you're the author.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would recommend that, and I'll definitely post there. And I'll look on Amazon. I want to be part of your
Yeah.
15.
Yeah, because like I know I've sold 40 books. So I'm like somewhere around there. I've sold around 40, and I'm like I know I can get 15 out of you guys. Like
Yeah.
this that's it's a small goal, but we're getting there.
It's hard to get people, like, it's easy to get people to just do blind support for the most part.
Yeah.
But, like, to get people to actually publicly respond in any kind of way, like, the trailer for my current project has been on Amazon. It's about 4,000 views, like, no comments, like, 9 thumbs ups, and that's
Right.
it out of that 4,000. And it's just like, how do you get people to interact?
There um there's this book that I read. I want to actually order it on Amazon. So since I'm taking a break from college, I'm a psychology philosophy major. And so since I'm taking a break, I was like, you know what? I want to continue learning. So I got a library card at our local library. It's like 5 minutes on the road. And so they see me every week and they know what I'm doing. They're just like, all right, hey, how's it going? But I got this book. It's called The Dragonfly Effect. And it's specifically about how to do an effective like movement, like how to get people to not just like blindly follow what you're doing. And they actually did some like it was a recent book, like back in 2018, I think is when it was written. And it was really fascinating to see because like they specifically like shared like examples, like the first chapter, like they used their own method to show you a story of someone and how they also used the method and what that did. um, it was someone who needed a bone marrow transplant, and they were mixed race. So the likelihood of them finding a bone marrow transplant was like 0.03% in America, and he needed one within a month. Was basically what it was. And then so they had started like trying to reach out to people and figure out how to do this, and they found someone else who also needs a bone marrow transplant, and he's also mixed race, and he also has like a smaller amount, but he only has 3 weeks. And so they made this huge social media movement. This was back in like 2008 when it happened, and that was how we got the bone marrow database that we know today. Like we blew it out of proportion because of that social media movement that they did just to see if they could. It wasn't even like done by business people. It was these 3 friends of his wanted to save his life, and that was the motivation. And they like turned the world upside down, getting people to even donate or get tested to see if their bone marrow would match his. And they ended up finding a match for both. Neither men ended up surviving because they both ended up relapsing and after going into remission, and they passed away. But like it's still by doing that, like the byproduct of doing that, trying to save 2 men's life, even though neither of them survived, they ended up saving 8,000 that year.
Yeah, they made history by doing that.
Yeah, and it was just 3 dudes trying to save their best friend's life. And they were explaining that in order to make a movement, you need to make someone care enough to want to do something. But not just do that, make them care and then give them that opportunity. Say, hey, like, I'm evoking emotion in you. This thing needs to be changed right now. Instead of being like, oh my gosh, yes, it does. Be like, this is how you can change it. Here's your opportunity.
God, that's good. Yeah.
And they like it's a fascinating book. I highly recommend it.
I'll link to it.
Yeah, because it was really interesting to read because it wasn't like how to manipulate people. It was like genuine causes. He's like, if you're supporting something that genuinely helps people, he's like, because I think like the tagline was not another salesperson. It was like, if you genuinely like care about something and you genuinely want to help people and you invoke that emotion you feel in what you're doing, other people will feel that emotion too.
That's great. I'm gonna link to that book. I'm gonna get that book too.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing, and it sounds like the right spirit for this sort of thing. Because in the end, like, I mean, I guess sales matter to a certain extent, but really just the interaction. That's really what I don't know. That's what I've always been after. Is I want people to reach out and ask me questions about it.
Right. I want to like something that I've been doing with this competition, since we decided that we were doing 3 social medias, which is more than I've ever done in my life, I decided to do YouTube as one of mine. And I was like, well, I'm like, how am I supposed to make a lot of content if I'm just doing poetry? And so what I was thinking about was when I was starting out and looking at all of these places, trying to figure out how I'm supposed to start, all of these places that would be like, hey, this is how you start. And it'd be like, if you have 10,000 followers, this is how you grow from there. And I'm like, no, I don't have that many. And I'm like, I have 10 followers. Like, how do I start where I'm at? And like, I feel like a lot of those videos always started with, well, once you're at 500, here's how you grow from there. And it was like always like a starting line, but like no one ever knew how to get up there. And so I'm trying to like I've been doing a couple of videos. I'm trying to like consistently start doing some where I am explaining like how to self-publish from the start, and then I'm actually also trying to explain like my social media journey, because I'm like I am only at 500. I mean, that's way better than I was before, because when I started, I was at 10, and they were all people I knew. So I want to be able to be like, okay, so this is where I started, like all the way back to, at the beginning. This is where I started, and this is how I grew my account from there to where I'm at, and this is what I'm doing to try and grow from where I'm at.
Yeah.
I want to help the small people.
Yeah.
I don't care about the bigger people. They've got their
Yeah.
own stuff.
YouTube has this weird thing where, I mean, I stream some episodes on YouTube, but I haven't made it my main thing because their algorithm works against smaller people. But they have this feature where you can post updates to your subscribers almost like a timeline update,
Yeah.
but you need 10,000 subscribers to use it.
Yeah.
And I don't get that. It makes no sense to me whatsoever.
It's like they're helping out the big people.
Yeah.
One thing that I thought was interesting. So the first video I posted on my YouTube. So my YouTube username is Poetic Soul, and if you search it, I'm like one of the first ones that come up.
I'll do that now.
But it's like my name on YouTube. Because like what I want to eventually do, something that my friend Kyle and I are doing, we're both in North Carolina, we're both poets, is we miss doing poetry readings because of COVID. Like things have just not been happening, and so we want to eventually move to do an online poetry group, but just local, like just people in North Carolina, like in the same state as us. So so it's not like out of reach information, if that makes sense. Because like when it gets too big, you're like, hey, I need help with this thing, and they're like, oh, hey, I know someone, but I'm all the way in England. And and that's like the hard part I've had with some of the writing groups I'm a part of, is I don't have any local help.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to do something local because we know there's a lot of poets in the area. North Carolina is a big state for like poetry competitions and poetry readings. Even like button poetry has competed in some competitions in North Carolina. So we wanted to do a local one where we could like meet via Zoom or something. And then we also like have like a group on like a social media like Facebook, where like people can join and like post their work and say, hey, like I need some feedback, or like, hey, this is my new video. Like, guys, let me know what you think. Like I need like honest feedback. And it like again comes from that point where it's like, hey, these are people who are also in the same genre as me. So they'll give actual feedback instead of like, oh, I don't like this anyways, so it's horrible. And so eventually I want to post other people's spoken word poetry on there as well, which is why I chose that name. But for now,
You're gonna become your own. You're gonna become a publisher of others.
yeah,
I think that's
basically.
cool. Yeah.
But I noticed that my first video I posted was my poem metaphors in my book Thoughts and Metaphors, and that poem actually got over 600 views within the first hour, and I was like, that's really weird, because I don't know why people are watching that. And then I was actually looking it up, and apparently YouTube also prioritizes keywords, like one worded keywords and one worded titles. That was something I found when I like doing research. I've always been told that it's one of my coworkers would always tease me that she's like, well, you're autistic, you're good at math, right? And I'm like, I'm good at research. That's where my brain hyper focuses. I am good at math too, but like not algebra. So I like research is my thing, and I am the kind of person that will scour the internet for 8 hours, like just in passing, looking for research. I will like go down the rabbit hole, and I'll be like, oh, hey, so I found this article about this subject that you were talking about. And then people are like, how did you find that? And I'm like, well, it was posted back in 2010. And so these are the details of what happened. And they're like, where did you find that? I was like, it was on page like 800 of Google. It's fine. And so researching, I guess, I found something posted by one of the creators of YouTube, was that they actually target keywords. It's almost like what Google does is they're trying to be like Google, is so they target keywords.
Hmm.
And so that's apparently why that one did well, but the other ones didn't. Is because that one had a keyword that people have been looking into lately.
Interesting. That's good to know.
Which, yeah.
Yeah, I want to hack that system and
Oh,
make it
same.
work.
That's
So,
crazy.
you know, um, it. I know that you probably know this already, but if you any links you want to provide me to post in the description of the
Yeah.
episode, I'll direct traffic to you. Um, I love that you're using YouTube. I think one of the things I was trying to get all of my peers in my MFA to do was adopt video.
Hmm.
So many of them just didn't understand why YouTube is an important social media outlet. I'm like, you guys, people are legit making money off it when it takes off, and I don't really see writers on there that much. There's not a
That was
lot.
actually it's a that was a thing for me too. Was I wanted to kind of like break the like little mold of it because button poetry is the only place that I'm seeing that the only group that I see that's on YouTube really.
Yeah,
For the most part, I don't see anyone else. Um, and honestly, even like writers, like if I Google like how to self-publish things, it's mostly like monotone college teachers telling you how to do assignments and how to pass the class and tell you basically how to answer the questions on how to self-publish.
yeah, I
And
watch those.
oh, they were like, so if you like look up like writing videos, it's like a lot of people who are very unenthusiastic about it. And um I know that when I get to it, I'm very monotone, but I'm trying to be more like more because I'm like awkward around people, but when I get like excited about something, I am very enthusiastic and I want to be on that part of YouTube. I want to be like, hey, this is my stuff. I'm going to help you because I'm a great person and I want to be your friend because I don't have any. So I'm like, yes, this is where I want to be like, I want to get people also excited about their work, not to
Yeah,
be like, oh, I have to watch this 35-minute long video about someone droning on about something they don't care about.
yeah, yeah, and eventually, when things open up and it's safe to go back to restaurants, you could tie in public readings eventually into your
Yeah.
output of work.
That is something that I've been thinking about doing. Because like
Yeah,
we actually have a coffee shop down the road from us called the Holy Grind, and they do so they right now I guess they used to have like because it's a very open space, and they used to have like bands come in and play for like live music nights, and then they're like, oh yeah, we had spoken word poetry nights and everything like that, and obviously a lot of that's closed down because of COVID. And they're like, yeah, when we eventually like open back up, like we'd love to start doing that again. And they told me to let me know when they start doing poetry again.
yeah. Some
Well,
weeks back, I had the founder of an indie press on here, uh, Animal Riot Press, and he was saying how his press started as a reading series.
oh, that's
It's
awesome.
kind of an interesting. They were doing a reading series in Manhattan, and somehow, some way, it evolved into being an actual printing company, and they print
That's
indie books. Yeah. So, um, yeah. So it was good to meet you. I I'm doing these series, these sort of micro series within the podcast for April because April's National Poetry
yeah.
Month, and so like your podcast today marks day one of a 5 days straight. I'll be doing podcasts episodes with
Yeah.
writers. So it ends on Monday, or yeah, Monday, and yeah, I think it's really cool, and I hope that this directs traffic to you. Hopefully, we can get you your 15 before the end of the
Hopefully.
month. I'll retweet that for you, and
We'll hope so. But I will give you a link to my YouTube, a link to that book on Amazon that I
yeah.
recommended, and
Also, if you want to link the first book that you got
yeah,
way back when,
way
and
back when.
Yeah, keep me apprised about your new book. I'm interested.
I will. I'm hoping to finish the cover um, next month. I have like a goal day to have like a cover reveal. I've drawn a lot of art for it, but I'm like I haven't found like the right piece yet. So
Yeah.
we'll see if that happens. So
Okay.
hopefully, March 15th is what I'm aiming for.
Sounds good. All right. We'll be in touch. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks. Have a good day. Bye.
Hey everyone. Thanks for visiting my YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell notification.